I.S.L.A.M wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's try that again. I.S.L.A.M wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Welcome, everyone, to the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims Sunday morning class. It is wonderful to be back with the family, and I won't wax eloquent about my beautiful twin granddaughters, but it was wonderful to relax. I did not work. It's like a miracle almost. I did not work the whole 7 days I was there. I did my study and my own personal contemplation, which I'll be presenting part of it to you today, but I did not work the whole time I was there. It was wonderful. So I'm very happy to come back, and there are a few things I'd like to share with you, good things that are happening in our family. Our brother Swart passed all of his medical examinations. Mabruk, Jacinta. Hey, you're welcome. Good for you, mashallah. While I was away, I received a message that Elgin did his shahada. So please congratulate him. Alhamdulillah, very fortuitous and a great time to embrace Islam prior to the month of Ramadan. And in that vein, inshallah, the honored guest of Ramadan will arrive next Sunday night, inshallah, at sunset. And I pray that all of us will respect that guest and give that guest the ultimate in hospitality, and embrace all of the gifts that come with that guest. Alhamdulillah. And alhamdulillah ta'ala. Yes, thank you. We have someone with us that's never been with us before. Would you please introduce yourself? Shakila. Yes, mashallah, we're very happy to have you with us, and hopefully this will be the first of many times that you join us, inshallah. Did I leave anything else out? We have another person with us for the first time, Muhammad, mashallah. I'm waking up now. I should drink another sip of coffee. We all know what that does to me. Our beloved brother Muhammad, who is Gharam's brother, please, would you introduce yourself? Just anything you want to say to us? Yes. Are you looking for a wife?
My parents want him to be looking.
And I didn't put you on the spot at all, did I?
No, parents are so pressure on that one.
Anyway, we're very happy, and hopefully you will come and be with us again, inshallah. So, in alhamdulillah ta'ala, نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Allah. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no God, there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final servant and messenger. O you who believe, fear Allah, as Allah alone should be feared, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd. To proceed, we have been examining the virtues of Rajab, the virtues of Sha'ban, and we have been examining the inner dimensions of fasting. And I have been as comprehensive as I possibly could be to help you understand what you want to do and what you don't want to do during this great month. And I felt that the next thing we should look at is the Nafs, to sort of complete this understanding of the virtues of Ramadan in light of the fact that the month of Ramadan is a time of abstinence. It's a time of restraint. It is a time of purification. I thought we should understand that in a deeper way, inshallah. So we will probably not finish this presentation today, but we will continue wherever we finish, inshallah. The word nafs, and the plural is anfus and nufus, soul, life, person, heart, used as a reflexive when followed by the pronominal suffix self, selves, own, on behalf, each other, one another. This root, this triliteral root, is used 295 times in the Quran that I could count. May Allah forgive me if I missed one or two, but not 295 times in the Quran. Indicative of the fact of how important it is for us to know about this. We are talking about the internal dimension of the human being. So we have been talking about the internal dimensions of fasting, and this is the internal dimensions of the human being. And it is that internal dimension that you want to focus on in the month of Ramadan, because we are not trying to gain taqwa for our head, this akal. We are trying to gain taqwa for our hearts. This is where taqwa is. It is difficult to talk about the nafs or nufus. Why? Because we cannot see it. The spiritual heart is intangible in this context. Therefore, we do not have anything absolutely definitive. And I think it's qatihi in Arabic, means absolute definitive. Is that correct? Qatihi, absolutely definitive. Qatihi. Absolutely, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay. This spiritual heart is intangible, therefore we do not have anything absolutely definitive, a verse of Quran or specific hadith with an exact description of what it is. Later we will look at 3 stages of the nafs that are mentioned in the Quran, but we do not have a specific verse that actually defines the word. When there is no contradiction, scholars can incorporate that knowledge into an Islamic paradigm. And therefore, we learn about most of this from scholars that have done exactly that. Much of the study of the nafs comes from Imam Ghazali's Ulum ad-Din. And interestingly enough, those were the first books that I ever purchased, even before I embraced Islam. I was shocked that I had purchased these books, and then I read them about every year, every other year, all 4 volumes. We have ethical theories like Miskawi's refinement of the character, Tahdhib al-Akhlaq. And these are books that all of you can order, and I highly recommend them. Which discusses how to adopt good character and get rid of defective character. The idea is to ascend toward Allah and to build. And the idea is to purify ourselves of anything that does not please our Lord. Thus, one of the definitions, and perhaps in my understanding, the greatest definition, that is taqwa means I don't want to do anything to disappoint my Lord. I am not encouraging you to master the theory. I am encouraging you to be the theory. I am encouraging you to live the theory. Because what you know and you do not realize and materialize can actually curse you, will actually work against you. Much detail is written about the diseases of the heart and how they relate to one another. So I would highly encourage you to get the set of CDs, and I think it's called Diseases of the Heart by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and listen to them and implement them. We can even study how they relate to various faculties, the nafs, how they relate to access, ifrat, and remissness, tafrit. How we can access this closeness to Allah and how we can actually be remiss in that journey. The Islamic definition of character is very different than the Greek philosophers' definition of character, which was based on an elitist phenomena, whereas in the Islamic paradigm for Muslims, it all stems from the Prophet ﷺ. Let me speak to this a minute. Oftentimes, you will hear people talk about that person has class. And what they really mean is that that person is elite. But they are not elite in the way of Islam. They are elite according to Emily Post. And for those of you who don't know, Emily Post was the foremost mistress, not master, but mistress, I guess, of etiquette. I grew up learning Emily Post etiquette. Things like when a woman walks into the room, we were taught to stand, and that meant that you had good character. So this is very Greek in this kind of thinking. In Islam, I have a good character when I rid myself of anything that the messenger did not have, and I assess the qualities found in the asma wa sifat of Allah and in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this Islamic paradigm, simple nomadic Bedouins followed the perfect example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and had the best of character. This is a quantum leap in character. For example, in the Greek definition, you will not look at something like a man who buried 11 of his daughters alive, transformed his life, and became one of the shining stars. And all of us, inshallah, will become shining stars, beacons of light in our communities. This pertains to something extremely important, and that is the universality of Islam. Islam is truly an equal opportunity religion. When I go to Hajj, I'm wearing the same ihram that the king of Saudi Arabia is wearing, or the king or prince of any other nation highly populated by Muslims or people that call themselves Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated and leveled the playing field for all to draw themselves close to Allah, not just the elite, not just the ones that had PhDs, not just the ones that had master's degrees, not just the ones that had a bachelor's degree, not just the ones that have money, but all people have this ability to ascend to the level of angels, and that is the highest character, because then you are never disobeying Allah. We could speak of the whole physical human body, or we could speak of its composite parts. For example, I have 2 eyes, I have 1 mouth, I have 2 ears, I have 2 hands, I have 10 fingers. Likewise, the internal dimension of the human being is that it is composite in that sense. And inshallah, I will be able to explain this to you, inshallah. We can speak about it in an overarching sense by referring to it as the heart, and mean by that the internal dimension of the human being. When I say my heart is full of love for my wife, I am not talking about that 4-dimensional chamber heart that is inside of my chest. I'm coming from a different space. We can also speak about it on another dimension when we speak of the various aspects of that internal dimension of the heart and go into great detail. I will not go into great detail today, but I promise you that the very first level that I will go into will probably confuse you. I will do my very best to try not to do that. So Quranic terms will help us. And folks, I'm going to give you the definition one time, and I'm not going to give it again, inshallah. Because I want you to know these terms. It is vital for your spiritual growth. It is vital for your spiritual growth to know the terms that I'm going to use today. So I would encourage you to get out your cameras and take pictures of slides when you see a word that you do not know what it means. This is vital to your spiritual growth, and it is vital to the growth of your family and this ummah. In the Quran, we have the following words: Nafs, Qalb. And by the way, that's with Qaf. And if you say Kalb with the Ka, you're saying dog. So for you new Muslims, I was walking around talking about my dog, but I was really meaning to talk about my heart when I first learned of this. So it is Qalb. Ruh, Fuad, Al-Bab, Lub, Sadr. I want you to get these words, and I want you to know them like you know the back of your hand. Insha'Allah. Sadr. With the Sad. Sadr. Okay? Yes.
What does Fuad?
I'm going to tell you what all of them means. I'm going to tell you one time, and I'm not going to tell you anymore. I want you to learn these, folks. This is vital to your soul. Okay? How are all these Quranic terms related to the same entity internally? Imagine that all of these terms Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used to talk about our heart. And you're going to find that each of these has a specific meaning. And yet, how long would we be able to talk about the internal dimension of the heart currently? We should be able to wax eloquently about the heart because that is our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it should be with the utmost passion, spiritual passion. Let's examine words found in the Quran that help us to understand how all of these are related simultaneously to the internal dimensions of the human being called the heart. Scholars have put this together for us. There is so much written about this. No specific proofs, only scholarly explanations. So remember, I said that I cannot give you a specific verse from the Quran that defines this internal peace that I'm speaking of. But I can give you lots of ahadith and lots of verses that will help you learn about this. This is the intangible spiritual heart, the internal spiritual dimension of the spiritual heart. Again, we do not have anything absolutely definitive, qat'i, in Quran or Hadith. So here is my explanation. Now I want you to know that I would like to have done this vertically instead of horizontally, but I couldn't figure out how to do it on my PowerPoint. So we're going to say that here is the heart. And here's another heart, another heart, and another heart. There are 4 dimensions of this inner heart, the spiritual heart. And so I'm going to say up, even though it's to your right. In the alam al-shahada, the seen realm of the world, we deal with the nafs. Actually, that goes down. The right side goes down. The left side I would have had on the top, which is the connection of the heart to the alam al-ghayb, the unseen world. And this has to do with our ruh, or our spirit. I hope everybody took a picture of this slide, and I hope that you will really grasp the meaning of this. Otherwise, when the door closes to the plane, you will have not gotten on the plane. You will be left either on the runway or in the lobby waiting for the next plane. So please look at this. It's very important. It will really, really help you in what you are striving for in the month of Ramadan. Okay? So each of these four are in order as they have ascendancy. And you'll understand what I mean by that, inshallah. There is a relationship of the ruh to the heart, and there is a relationship of the nafs to the heart. How do we understand these terms? Scholars say that one can speak of the heart generally and specifically. Previously, I spoke of the body in a general way, and I spoke of it specifically with its composite parts: eyes, ears, nose, hands, legs, etc. Specifically, the heart has 4 layers. The outermost layer is the sadr. Allah said to the Messenger of Allah, "Have we not expanded your sadr?" And it is translated often to say breast or chest. Now, is it talking about this physical chest, the front surface of our body between the neck and the abdomen? No. So it is an interdimensional term. One scholar wrote a book about these 4 terms alone, how they are related to one another, and the different verses that speak of these different levels or layers of the heart, and certain realities about how they receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The heart has 4 layers. The outermost layer, it's pretty easy to visualize this, is the sadr, translated as chest or breast. The layer beneath that is the qalb. We have used the qalb in 3 ways now, and this is where I said it can be a little confusing. I ask Allah to open your spiritual eyes and your spiritual ears so that you can grasp this knowledge today, inshallah. The qalb being synonymous with the internal dimension of the human being was the way I first defined it. The qalb referring to these 4 layers collectively as opposed to the ruh and the nafs. And finally, the qalb in its most specific sense. We have used qalb in 3 different ways, and all are valid. The next layer after that is the fuad. This is the inner chamber of the heart. The lub is the innermost core and the most subtle dimension of the heart. And I promise you folks that I could do easily an hour lecture on every one of these dimensions. Easily. These are the 4 different ways the heart receives. You have one body, but its fingers, different body parts, have a function. Similarly, we have one heart that has 4 layers, each having a function. Don't worry, I will not teach you about the function of each today. But I want you to know this, and I want to encourage you to study this. Al-Bab, plural of lub, mind, heart, understanding, intellect, insight. Ulu al-Bab, people possessed of minds, those who are wise, people of insight. When we look at this, it would be easy to mistranslate this to mind, wouldn't it? It is not referring to the mind. It is referring to that inner dimension and that layer of your spiritual heart. Sometimes people read this and they think akal, this cognitive brain. It's not referring to that. It's referring as Plato referred to as the intellect of the heart. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 179, in retaliation there is life for you, O people possessed of minds, insight, and understanding, that you may become mindful of Allah. Restrain yourself and ward off evil. This is talking about the heart, the interdimensional heart. And what is it telling us? It is telling us what we are to be practicing in the month of Ramadan, restraint. Except that this is a general verse specific to all times, every day, every month, every week, every year. I have listed for you, and I would recommend that you take a picture of this, every single verse that I know about that is specific to lub. I've listed them all on the bottom of this slide for you. The next one is the fu'ad, plural of idda, heart. In chapter 6, verse 110, we turn their hearts and eyes away from the truth as they refuse to believe at first, leaving them to wander blindly in their defiance. Is this talking about these eyes? Absolutely not. This is talking about the eyes of the heart, and it says in the Arabiya, fu'ad. It's referring to this layer of the heart. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if we continue to sin, our hearts will be sealed. Nothing can get in and nothing can get out. It's not talking about these eyes. This is why it is so important to know this, and this is why it is so important to be in a constant state of repentance and amendment. Qalb, heart, plural of qulub. Look at this verse 113 of chapter 6. Yet to the end that the hearts of those who do not believe in the life to come might incline towards Allah. Meant to change that. And that in Allah they might find contentment, and that they might earn whatever they can earn of merit. I have listed for you all of the verses that I could find specific to qalb. And next, sadr, plural of sudr, breast, chest, heart, mind. All of these words you will find in the translation. It does not mean those words literally. In chapter 3, verse 29, say, O Muhammad, whether ye hide that which is in your breast or reveal it, Allah knoweth it. He knoweth that which is in the heavens and in that which is in the earth, and Allah is able to do all things. Allah knows what is in our hearts in these four chambers. And I have listed all of the verses I could find for you specific to sadr. And I would encourage you to read every one of these. Great, great reading for you. Again, I want you to see the diagram one more time and understand the connections. The connection on the Nafs side will bring me down to the world. The connection on your left and my right will make us ascend to the unseen world of angels. And this is how important this is. The heart on one side has the nafs related to the alam al-shahada, the seen realm. And the other relates to the ruh, which is the spirit. And why is this so important? This relates to the whole story of the human being. This relates to the whole story of the human being. If we do not understand this, we will never understand the purpose of life and how to materialize and realize what we have been created to experience. I feel I have to say that again. If we do not understand this, we will never understand the purpose of life and how to materialize and realize what we have been created to experience. And we were all created for worship. I created men and jinns for naught except that they worship me. The Ruh, spirit, came from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah 17, verse 85, and I think that's a mistake. It's Surah out of Surah 7, verse 85. I'm pretty sure that's a mistake. They put you questions about Ruh, the spirit. Tell them the spirit is at my Rabb's command, and I am not given any knowledge of it, but a little. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, I haven't given you a lot of information about this. I've given you just what you need to know. So as I said here, we know little about this unseen phenomena, the pre-earthly realm, from the day Allah created souls which were created before humans, to the day this ruh was placed into our mother's wombs, and the day that our mothers gave birth to us. And we know that, according to scholars, that soul is taken from that soul world at 120 days and placed in your mother's womb. And that soul is the fitra, and that soul is perfect, and it comes out perfect. And we are to strive, and we have to know this information so that we can bring it back to perfection, because our environments have caused it to deviate downward to the Nafs side instead of ascending to the angelic side. Our Prophet ﷺ said, souls are like crowds which gather together. The ones who met before get on well. The ones who did not meet before cannot get on very well and separate. This is from Bukhari, Muslim, and Abu Dawood. So sometimes in the world you'll meet somebody and you'll say, like, I feel like I knew you before. And I.S.L.A.M, Allah knows best. Perhaps we are recognizing each other from the soul world. So we refer to people like this as kindred spirits. We talk about soulmates on the earth. And this hadith, I deem by Allah, addresses this connection. That hadith states that people met somewhere before they came into this world. Clearly, it cannot have happened in the mother's womb. There's only enough room for 1 or 2 or 3 quintets, whatever they have. This was not in the womb. This is in that soul world in Surah 7. It means they existed before and were created before they came into the mother's womb. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it is mentioned that this worldly life is our second life. All human beings' first life was in the spirit form in another world for spirit souls before this world was created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath from all of us that when we came to this world, we would only worship Allah and not anything else. With the agreement which we call Qalu Bala, they said yes, and which souls promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to obey Allah happened. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the souls, am I not your Lord? The souls, not the physical human being, the souls answered, yes, you are our Lord. This is the fitra, the natural inclination, the sound human nature, which is instilled in our souls and hearts, that drive us to believe in Allah and to know Allah and long to know Allah. It pushes and compels us to acknowledge that the Creator is the only perfect Lord who bestows blessings upon us and upon all other created beings, plants and animals. This spiritual urge to believe in Allah is the strongest factor that prompts people to believe in Allah and affirm Allah's oneness, because it is usually stronger than any other impulse. So you see an atheist, they take the hammer, they mean to hit the nail, but they hit their hand and they say, "Oh my God." Meanwhile, they say, "I don't believe in God." But there's something inside of them that always calls them back to Allah. This urge can become blind. This urge can become deaf if we do not understand the material that I'm teaching today about our heart. We must guard our hearts, and therefore we must understand that it has 4 layers, and we must understand what each layer is. Often this urge to believe may overwhelm a person and make them realize the belief in divine oneness, Tawheed, deep in their heart at times of crisis and calamity. Even if the one who still has that sound natural inclination, fitra, is pretending today to be an atheist. The call of Tawheed is still urging them from deep inside to believe because of this natural inclination, fitra, which is the first covenant taken from the children of Adam in the soul world. Abu Dawood narrated, Al-Hassan ibn Ali told us, Al-Hajjaj ibn al-Minhal said, I heard Hamad ibn Salama explaining the hadith, every child is born in a state of fitra. He said, in our view, this refers to when Allah took the covenant from them when they were in the soul world, and He said, am I not your Lord? And they said, yes. And I was correct. It was Surah 7, verse 172. We know little. Our Lord has taught us just what we need to know in this life. There is a reality to the unseen. Just because science cannot detect the unseen, it is a fallacy to believe or deduce from that the unseen does not exist. The unseen is beyond the realm of science. It is impossible for science to prove or disprove the realm of the unseen. That is precisely what the unseen is. It is beyond the realm of reason. This is why, folks, I remind you that this is not a study of the akal. It's not a study of the brain. The brain will delude you. If you are in a desert and you are dying of thirst, your brain will delude you that that oasis has water for you and you will die going to that delusion. But the heart, if it's filled with the knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, it will not delude you. It will be the king of your empire. It will be the king of all of your limbs. And your arms and your eyes and your ears and your tongue and your feet will obey Allah. Because Allah will be the king of all of those 4 levels of the heart. The intellect has no access to the unseen. What part of Allah's creation do we think of when we think of spirit? When we think of someone being spiritual, we think of someone being angelic. So somebody does a good deed and we say, oh, you're such an angel. In the story of Yusuf A.S.L.A.M, the Potiphar's wife brought other women to see Yusuf because she was so taken by Yusuf's beauty. She gave each one of them a knife and some fruit. And instead of cutting the fruit, They cut their hands because their desires were so strong for Yusuf. Yusuf, on the other hand, who had so much control and so much knowledge of his heart, he said, Ya Allah, make paradise more beautiful than this woman. They said, this is not a human being. Oh my God, he's so handsome. He's so knocked down gorgeous. He's like a special gift from Allah. But they were talking about this angelic quality that he had. This is the realm of the spirit. The spirit is of the utmost importance to us, and we need to understand its function and what it is supposed to do. If we don't understand this, we will never be able to understand the ultimate experience of life. The quest of the human being is that we have a heart. The more one gives victory to spirit, the more pure one's nafs will become. The more one is dragged down by one's nafs and the nature of the dunya, the world, most translated as the world, the more distant they will become from the ruh. So can you see how I would have preferred to have my chart vertical instead of horizontal? Every human has a ruh in them. When we see people with different types of addictions, crime, drugs, gambling, food, sex, pornography, computers, video games, working, exercising, seeking pain, cutting, stealing, shopping, and the list goes on and on. Their spirit screams out, the self-reproaching soul screams out, oh God, help me. The fitra comes alive and tries to call you back to that natural state. I'd like to say naturally spiritual state. It is impossible for anyone to attain true felicity except the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed. There is a relationship between tranquility of the heart, revelation, and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah 8, verse 45, only in remembrance of Allah does the heart find tranquility and peace. You will never find tranquility and peace. You will never find bliss in the dunya. You will find fleeting moments of what we call happiness. But you will not find this level of tranquility, actual tranquility of the heart. And there are many verses. I would encourage you to look at every verse that talks about dhikr, remembrance of the heart. In Surah 29, verse 45, the remembrance of Allah is the greatest deed. I ask myself and I ask you, and please do not answer out loud, how often do you remember Allah? How many hours go by that we don't remember Allah? Life and living is all about purifying our heart from diseases and adopting virtues. When any group of people remember Allah, angels surround them and mercy covers them. Tranquility descends upon them, and Allah mentions them to those who are with the divine. Who would miss out on this opportunity? And yet many people in the world spend hours and hours and hours in front of the television not remembering Allah. But they have the opportunity to remember Allah so that their name will be mentioned in the places where those people are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is our heart that has various diseases that arise in it. The heart is in the middle, the spirit of ruh on the one side, and the nafs, the ego and the self on the other. The ruh being the connection to the unseen, and the nafs
being the connection to the seen realm. If I only focus on that which I can see, I will have a very limited spiritual experience. That's why I'm encouraging you to look at these 4 levels of the heart, to go inside and to have a deeper experience with your Lord, because it is through going inside that I ascend closer to my Lord. And it is through going outside and embracing the world, the lowest dunya, that I descend. We give victory to the Spirit by purifying our heart and adopting the virtues enjoined on us from the Quran and Sunnah. Our state of heart is determined by whether we give victory to the ruh or we give victory to the nafs. If I give victory to my nafs and I am sinning and I'm just satisfying every single whim, desire, and impulse that I have, I will be stuck to the earth, the lowest of places that I can be. But if, on the other hand, I'm focused on my ruh, my spirit, returning that fitra back to Allah in the way that He gave it to me, I will become close to my Lord. In Surah 43, verse 36, whoever blinds themselves from the remembrance of the merciful, we shall assign for them an evil Satan who will be their ever misleading companion. Folks, we need to be careful what we do. We are about to embark upon the great month of Ramadan. Inshallah, next Sunday night it will arrive. And all the benefits that you've learned, all of the gifts of this great month. And many people will watch cultural soap operas in the evening instead of going to Taraweeh. And when they're watching those soap operas, they're cheating themselves out of all of the blessings of all of the angels that they could meet if they went to the house of Allah. All of the blessings that their heart could receive. So when we're talking about blindness here, we're not talking about the blindness of this. We're not talking about the organs that need these things. What is the nafs? I want to define the nafs linguistically, and we'll sort of wrap it up here, because this is where I will pick up next week. I needed to share this information about the heart as the foundation to this. It is amazing. One will find literally a map of the cosmos, the universe seen as a well-ordered whole, by just studying the meanings of the Arabic words for nafs, in and of themselves, from the soul world all the way back to the soul world. We came from the soul world, and we're going back there. And what do we say when someone dies? Inna ilahi. Yeah, inna lillahi, yes. From Allah we came, and to Allah we return. The verb from nafusa, yanfusu, is where we get the meaning of being precious and valuable. It is often followed up with kareem, the one who is noble and generous. Nafis is valuable and tells us something about the nafs. We have 2 more permeations of the verb, and as you know, in the root form of every triliteral Arabic root, there are 6 forms, and I won't go into them today. I would probably mess it up. So we see nafisa yinfasu with a kasra on the fa, and we see nafisa, which means to be sparing and miserly, to begrudge and envy. And it's so amazing because just one change in a diacritical in the noun, kisra fata kisra dama, tanween fata kisra dama, changes the whole meaning of the word. So with one strike of a pen above or below a letter, we can go from that which is precious to that which is miserly. And this is why we have to be so careful when people ignorant like me are trying to talk about Arabic. When we look at the nafs in this meaning, linguistically speaking, it also has a negative connotation. So nafs has a positive connotation and a negative connotation. And we will review these few slides on nafs when we start back next week, inshallah. This is the way scholars have always understood the nafs, with the positive and negative connotation. There is a negative aspect of the nafs when it is in its lower stage, and there is a positive aspect when the nafs is in its higher state. Just like the world itself, there are different words one can use. Two of the main words used are alam and dunya. Dunya comes from daniya danu, which means to be close or near. It is the immediate world because we are here in it now. It also comes from daniya, that it is lowly. The world in and of itself is the lower world. It is the most opaque world. It has a lowly nature to it, in so much as that it preoccupies one from preparing for the afterlife. In contrast, we look at the word I.S.L.A.M. It only has a positive connotation. When one thinks of the word I.S.L.A.M., they are now speaking of world that would probably translate I.S.L.A.M. as the cosmos, thinking of the word now as a sign from Allah that it is the I.S.L.A.M. So as I have shared many words with you today about the heart, we are now looking at some words about the nafs. And I don't want to confuse you, but I wanted to tease you with where we will be going next week. And I will just add to that the Holy Quran has 3 stages of this nafs. And we will go through each of these, inshallah, next week. I ask you that if I said anything that offended you, to please forgive me, and I ask you to pray for me, and I pray for you. I pray that we can learn about our hearts, and that we can purify our hearts. Because I say to you, my beloved brothers and sisters, until we purify ourselves, we will never purify our communities, and we will never purify our ummah. It has to begin within each and every one of you in front of me today. And Allah does not lie. If we learn about this heart, and we purify this heart, and we give provisions to this heart, then we will be successful in the afterlife. I love you all for the sake of Allah. As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.